The night rain fell heavy against the glass windows of the towering skyscraper, the city lights below blurred into streaks of gold and silver, and Amelia sat alone in the backseat of a sleek black car, her trembling fingers clutching the thin piece of paper that had rewritten the course of her life. It was a marriage contract, signed not out of love, not out of choice, but out of desperation. Her father's debts had drowned their family, her mother's health was fading, and the creditors had threatened to strip everything bare. The only way to save them was to sacrifice herself, binding her future to the coldest, most untouchable man in the business world, Adrian Kane, the CEO known for his ruthless empire, his frozen heart, and the emptiness in his eyes. That night, she wasn't a bride stepping into a new chapter of happiness, she was a pawn walking into the shadows of a deal where love was never meant to exist. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in love's power to thaw even the coldest of hearts, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support keeps these stories alive and reminds the world that hope and love can bloom in the most unexpected places. From the very beginning, Adrian had made it clear that this marriage was nothing but a business arrangement. He didn't look at Amelia on their wedding day, not once. His eyes were fixed on the papers, not the vows. He had dismissed her presence as if she were an obligation, something bought, something owned. The mansion she moved into was beautiful but hollow, like a museum where warmth had long been exiled. Staff members bowed, corridors echoed with silence, and the man she was now tied to came home late, his face unreadable, his words clipped, and his soul locked behind walls she couldn't scale. Nights were long and cold, her only companion the ticking clock and her own racing thoughts. She cried quietly into her pillow, not because she regretted the choice, but because she wondered how much of herself she would lose in this loveless existence. But Amelia was not weak. Beneath her quiet sorrow lived a fire of resilience. She found small ways to breathe life into the cold mansion. She filled empty corners with fresh flowers, left books scattered on tables, and baked bread in the silent kitchen just to let the house smell like something human. The staff grew fond of her warmth, and even the most stone-faced among them began to smile when she entered the room. Slowly, without realizing, she was weaving threads of humanity into a place that had long been suffocated by frost. But Adrian remained unchanged, or so she thought. Behind the closed doors of his study, Adrian often found himself distracted by the faint laughter of Amelia as she chatted with the housekeeper, or the distant aroma of her cooking seeping under the cracks of his solitude. He had buried himself in a life where affection was weakness, where love was a liability. But the sight of her, so gentle yet unyielding, fragile yet strong, began to chip away at the fortress around his heart. He noticed how she stayed awake to check the time when he came home late, how she left a cup of tea on the counter though she knew he'd never thank her, how she placed her mother's worn rosary on the bedside table as a reminder that faith was stronger than despair. He noticed, and he hated himself for noticing, because it stirred something he had long killed inside. Their first collision came one stormy night when Amelia discovered Adrian slumped at his desk, a rare moment of exhaustion breaking through his armor. She had laid a blanket over his shoulders, thinking he was asleep, but his hand had shot up, gripping her wrist with surprising force. His eyes, usually cold as steel, met hers with an intensity that left her breathless. For the first time, he didn't push her away. Instead, his gaze softened ever so slightly, as if he were searching for something he couldn't name. She whispered softly that he worked too hard, that no empire was worth breaking oneself. He didn't answer, but the grip on her wrist loosened, and when she walked away, he sat there longer than usual, his thoughts no longer about profits and losses, but about the woman who had dared to lay kindness on his shoulders. The weeks stretched into months, and their fragile coexistence began to shift. Adrian, without admitting it, began to linger at the dining table when Amelia ate, even if he didn't join. He started coming home earlier, pretending it was for work, but his eyes betrayed him every time they wandered toward her. And Amelia, though cautious, began to see glimpses of a man beneath the ice, a man burdened by pain, haunted by memories, terrified of loss. The truth was, Adrian hadn't been born cold, he had been made that way. The death of his younger sister in a car crash years ago had shattered him, and the betrayal of a former fiancé who loved his wealth more than him had sealed the cracks with bitterness. He had vowed never to open his heart again. Yet here was Amelia, silently untying the knots, not with grand gestures but with quiet persistence. The turning point came on the night of her birthday. She hadn't expected him to remember, let alone care. She had spent the evening alone in her room, watching the flickering candles of a small cake she had bought for herself. But when the clock struck midnight, the door opened, and Adrian stepped in, holding a velvet box. His words were clumsy, his tone hesitant, but he wished her a happy birthday. For Amelia, it wasn't the diamonds in the box that mattered, it was the crack in his walls, the simple act of remembering, the proof that she mattered in some corner of his heart. That night, when he saw tears glisten in her eyes, something in him broke completely. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time since their marriage, he held her as though he feared letting go. From that day on, the man who had once been a stranger became her protector, her confidant, her greatest weakness. Adrian began to worship her presence, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude for the light she had brought into his hollow world. He cherished her laughter, defended her dignity, and every night he came home, he sought her not as a contract wife, but as the heartbeat he could no longer live without. And Amelia, who had once thought she would lose herself in this loveless bargain, found instead that she had healed a broken man and discovered love in the unlikeliest of places. If this story has touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks. Your support means more than words, it keeps alive the hope that love and kindness can transform even the hardest of lives. And before we close, I have a special request for you. Comment below and tell us, do you believe that even the coldest hearts can learn to love again?